Hello everyone, I'm Alexandra from In-House Patterns and In-House Pattern Studio. Today I am sharing 3 secrets to achieving fitting success. This was a free workshop that I did a while ago that shared some really good basic advice on how to prepare yourself for fitting. Now, everything I share in this presentation is perfect for you if you're new to garment sewing and are beginning to struggle a little bit with fitting, or if you've come back from a long break from sewing for yourself and have discovered that patterns just don't fit like they used to. Now, if you're an experienced sewer and an accomplished fitter, you'll likely find this a good overview of the basics of fitting. So let's get started. Welcome to 3 secrets to achieving fitting success. So here is the first secret. In order for a pattern to fit you, the garment must have specific fitting elements incorporated into the design. Now, all sewing patterns, regardless of their style, originate from a basic block pattern. Now, the basic block is developed for a specific set of body measurements and fit to a specific body shape, which represents what the pattern designer believes to be the size and shape of their customer. The fit of the basic block pattern is achieved through the use of strategically placed darts and seams. These are what I call fitting elements. Their dimensions and position on the pattern depend entirely on the body the pattern has been designed for. Now, the back shoulder dart controls the shape of the garment for the upper back of the body. Now, its width, length, and position will vary based on the prominence of the shoulder blade and the roundness of the back. Now, if this dart is not the correct width, length, or position for you, you will likely experience a gaping back neckline, a gaping back armhole, or diagonal wrinkles pointing to the upper back area. Now, this is a really important dart and the one most of us are really keen to eliminate, but I really encourage you to find some way to incorporate it into your garments. Now, the bust dart controls the shape of the garment, of course, over the bust or the prominence of the chest. The width, length, and position of this dart will depend on the volume, prominence, and position of the bust or the chest. If this dart is not the correct width, length, and position for you, you will experience a gaping front neckline, a gaping front armhole, and if your bust cup size just happens to be larger or smaller than that which the pattern has been designed for, you'll get diagonal wrinkles pointing to the bust or excess fabric around the bust line. Now, the bodice waist darts control the shape of the garment from the bust level to the waist level. The width and length of these darts will depend on the difference between the bust and waist circumference and the length of the body from the bust to the waist. Now, if this dart doesn't address your shape, you'll experience a wide variety of fitting issues associated with it, like tightness or looseness in the waist, or perhaps even pooling fabric around the waistline. Now, the skirt waist darts, and this works for pant waist darts too, control the shape of the garment from the waist to the hip. Now, the length, width, and number of darts needed here are really dependent on the waist to hip ratio and the length of the body from the waist to the fullest part of the hip. Now, once again, a wide variety of issues can arise if these are not following your body dimensions and proportions, and we all know how unique our bodies are in this area. Now, the theory is, if the block fits, so will all the pattern designs created from it. But for the theory to work, designers need to incorporate these fitting elements into their new designs. However, since the pattern designer is using a standardized block based on what they believe to be their customer's size and shape, clearly this new design isn't going to fit everyone. So it's important for you to be able to recognize where these fitting elements have gone in the new design so that you can learn how to alter it to fit you. Creative designers cleverly disguise these fitting elements into the new design by using what is called dart equivalence. Even if the new style appears not to incorporate the fitting elements, they can in fact exist in the garment, as long as the designer has dealt with them appropriately. Now, dart equivalents come in the form of ease, gathers, tucks, pleats, seams, and flare. To demonstrate, let's take a closer look at the Bella blouse from In-House Patterns. I have placed the bust fitting in the gathers at the yoke, but I've also shared some of the bust fitting within the tucks at the waist. Since this is a D-cup pattern, I didn't want all of the bust fitting in the gathers. I wanted a bit of a softer look, so I split the bust fitting between the gathering at the yoke and the tucks at the waist. I included the waist and hip shaping in the pleats at the front and back of the blouse. Now, if you've made this top up, you probably noticed that the pleats are shaped. So when you stitch them, they actually mimic the shape of the body. The back shoulder dart and upper back shaping has been hidden inside the yoke seam. I've actually transferred the shoulder dart to this seam so that it not only works as a fitting element, it also becomes a design detail too. So let me ask you, did you look for these specific fitting elements when you shop for sewing patterns? If you haven't considered this when choosing your pattern style, perhaps give it a little bit of thought next time and choose your next project with this in mind. You might find that you'll get a little bit closer to a better fit on your first try. Let's quickly go through another example. This is the Sophie dress from In-House Patterns. The bust and waist fitting in this bodice is all hidden inside the gathers at the center front panel. I've rotated both the bust dart and the waist dart to this location. So once again, all the important bust fitting elements are accounted for. The back waist shaping on both views are located in the vertical waist darts. These you'll recognize from the basic block. Now I've been a little bit sneaky with the waist to hip shaping here. In view A, I've left the front waist dart in the skirt unsewn and have incorporated it as ease instead. The ease at the front waist seam of the skirt allows the garment to fit smoothly over the prominence of the tummy. For view B, I transferred these darts into flare at the hem to create this fit and flare silhouette. On the back of view A, I've left the skirt waist darts as they are in my basic block, but for view B, I transferred them to the hem of the skirt to create the fit and flare silhouette that matches the front. Now the key to using these dart equivalents to your advantage is having the ability to recognize them in styles that don't necessarily look like a basic block pattern. Once you can recognize where the designer has put the key fitting elements in the pattern, you can begin to understand how to alter it to fit you. In order to do this, you need to take a closer look at the style lines of the garment and then dive a little deeper into the pattern to discover where the key fitting elements have gone. It is the pattern that holds the key to your fitting success. Let's move on to the second secret. Now the second secret is that the pattern company's sizing chart contains more information than you might think. Let's use the Vogue McCall sizing chart as an example. Now I've taken this directly from their website, so this information is available to anyone who chooses to look. First of all, let's consider the information that they've provided about height. This chart indicates that the regular size patterns have been built for a body that is 5'5" to 5'6" in height. Now the petite sizes are made for a body that is 5'2" to 5'3". So what does this mean for me, who is 5'4", or someone else who might be 5'8"? Well, it likely means that we will have to make some kind of length adjustment to the pattern. Now at this point, we don't know yet where we need to make that length adjustment, but it's very clear that we will need to make it somewhere on the pattern. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the sizing chart. We can see here that there is a relationship between the bust circumference and the chest circumference, where the chest circumference can be considered the high bust girth. Now I think most of you are familiar with that term. You can see here that there is a 2-inch or 5 centimeter difference between these numbers on all of the sizes. Now, in the sewing world, this means that the pattern has been designed for a body with a bust cup size of B. Now, if the difference had been 3 inches, it would mean a C bust cup size. A 1-inch difference would indicate an A bust cup size. But since it's 2 inches or 5 centimeters, we know that this pattern has dart volumes appropriate for a B bust cup size. Now, if your bust cup size is smaller or larger than this, you will need to make a bust adjustment to the pattern regardless of whether your bust circumference matches what is listed on the sizing chart. Let's take a look at a few more measurements. Let's focus on the size 14 to start with. Now, I want you to take note of the relationship between the bust, waist, and hip circumference. Notice that the difference between the waist and hip is 10 inches or 25 centimeters, and the difference between the bust and hip is 2 inches or 5 centimeters. This is the description of a standard hourglass figure. It is this relationship between these measurements that have existed in fashion since we started to mass produce clothing. This hourglass shape has always been considered to be the most desirable, but clearly we do not all come in this shape. So as a result, we will be left to make pattern alterations to make this pattern fit. Now, if we move along the size chart and focus on size 22, we can see that the relationship changes just a little. Now, the difference between the waist and hip on this size is 9 inches or 23 centimeters, and the difference between the bust and hip is 2 inches or 5 centimeters. In this size, the waist is essentially 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters larger than in the smaller sizes. So in essence, this is still considered an hourglass figure. So once again, most of us will likely need to make alterations here. Now there is another helpful body measurement listed here, and it is the back waist length. This is the measurement from the base of the neck to the waist level at the back of the body. So now we know that the pattern has been designed for a body with a back waist length of 16.5 or 15.5 if you're using the lengthen and shorten lines for petites. This tells us that if our measurement doesn't match this, you will need to make a pattern alteration, but it also gives us a clue as to the waist position on the pattern. So this measurement becomes valuable for 2 reasons. With this measurement, we can find the waist position on the pattern and alter the waist length if we need to. So let me ask you this: have you ever looked at the sizing chart in this way? Hopefully you can see how even just a few measurements can provide information about the types of alterations you may need to make to a pattern. And the great thing is you can see this before you even purchase the pattern. If we circle our own measurements on the sizing chart, you'll clearly see that one single pattern size is rarely going to work. But if you look closely at the relationship between the numbers, you can begin to see how you are different than the body that the pattern was designed for. This doesn't mean the pattern isn't for you. It just means it's going to take a few pattern alterations to make it work for you. So ultimately, the sizing chart tells you a lot about the body that the pattern company designs for, but it can also give you clues as to the pattern adjustments you'll need to make. You can make a plan and mentally prepare for fitting, even before you purchase the pattern. Understanding this is going to prepare you for the fit adjustments you'll likely need to make and save you the disappointment of a failed sewing project if you were to stitch up this garment right out of the package. So let me tell you all about the third secret. The pattern itself can tell you how it's going to fit you. Now we already know that the sizing chart is going to be very helpful in determining some of the adjustments you'll need to make, but it doesn't give you all the information. You have to glean a lot of the missing information from the pattern itself. So it's a really good idea, once you've purchased the pattern, to pull out the pieces and take a closer look. When you pull out the pattern, I want you to consider your past fitting issues. Is the shoulder width usually too large? Do you often feel restricted when you put your arms forward? Is the bicep usually too tight or too loose? Do you always have to adjust the sleeve length? Now keep these in mind when you're reviewing the pattern, because all of these issues can be solved if you take the time to measure your pattern. You can easily assess if the shoulder width will work for you by measuring that area on the pattern and, of course, comparing it to your body measurement. You just need to keep in mind that the pattern will likely have ease built into it. And of course, some styling will make this more difficult to determine. The shoulder width normally has between 1/4 and 1/2 inch of ease. That's 0.6 to 1.3 centimeters of ease for a standard set-in sleeve on a fairly close-fitting garment. But you may want or need more for your comfort, or perhaps the style might require it as well. Measuring the pattern will help you assess how much to add or remove from this area of the pattern. The across back is really also a great one to check. It is common to feel restricted when you move your arms forward if this measurement isn't adequate. Comparing this pattern measurement to your body measurement will tell you if you need to add or reduce in this area. Likely we'll all want to add, because most of us want ease of movement here. Standard ease in this area is usually about 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters. But the more you have, the more comfortable your garment will be, and of course, the ease you need will depend entirely on the garment that you're making. Looser fitting styles, of course, will require more ease. The across front can also be assessed in this way. You can expect at least 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters of ease here as well. But I have found that fuller busts need more in this area, usually about 1 inch or 2.5 centimeters. You'll discover what your personal ease should be by being aware of this measurement and then altering it to your liking. Being aware of the measurement gives you the power to change it. The bicep girth is an important one for many of us as well. This measurement is also key for comfort, and it contributes to the ability to move your arms dynamically. Most of us need at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters of ease here, but once again, you may need more for your comfort or the style of the garment. Understanding how this measurement relates to your body measurement can help you avoid a garment that is really too uncomfortable to wear. Sleeve length is an issue for many of us as well. Likely, if you're taller or shorter than the body that the pattern has been designed for, you'll need to make changes here. So why not make them before you cut? So let me ask you this. Do you measure your sewing patterns before you sew? I highly recommend that you do this, because spending some extra time with the pattern is so important in understanding how the pattern measurements and ease relate to your body, and it gives you clues on the designer's fit intent. Now, I've pointed out a few of the areas on the pattern that you can assess before you sew. There are actually quite a few more. This example demonstrates how much power you have to alter the pattern to fit before you sew. Measuring your pattern not only provides additional information about the garment fit, it also fuels your knowledge for future sewing projects, because you can use what you learn on each pattern and apply it to similar sewing patterns. Granted, some sewing patterns do give you the finished garment measurements, and this is absolutely great, as long as they are correct. Now, I found that there are often errors with the measurements given, so I always suggest that you measure the pattern yourself to be sure. Now, I recently did a video tutorial that demonstrates this point exactly. You can find that video and, of course, many more on my website, inhousepatternstudio.com. There are many resources there that can help you. Here's what I want you to understand. As long as you know your body measurements and the measurements and ease of the pattern, you can transform it from a standard size to your size and eliminate the majority of your fitting issues before you even make a sample. But it's important that you make the adjustments in a very specific order if you truly want to achieve fitting success. Now let's go ahead and summarize those 3 secrets to achieving fitting success. First, you want to choose the pattern styles that have fitting elements. Darts and dart equivalents can be used to your advantage if you have the ability to recognize them in styles that don't necessarily look like a basic block pattern. Once you can recognize where the designer has put the key fitting elements in the pattern, you can begin to understand how to alter it to fit you. Study the pattern company's size chart. The size chart can provide a picture of the body that the patterns have been designed for and give you clues as to what you will need to do to alter them to fit you. Measure the pattern and determine the ease. Spend as much time as you need to understand the pattern itself. Taking the time to measure it and determine the ease the designer has allowed will also give you the opportunity to make changes where you feel they are needed. This can eliminate at least one sample fitting and give you greater understanding of what is needed when you see your first sample. Fitting is a skill that is cultivated by experience, but if you allow yourself the time you need to analyze the style, the sizing, and the pattern itself, you can achieve fitting success with far less trial and error. Now, if you're interested in more detail on the fitting process, get your copy of the Perfect Fit Guide. It's a free 8-page guide that walks you through the 6-step fitting process that I use. If you want an even deeper dive, my online course, Fitting Essentials, might be just what you're looking for. I'll leave links to both of these resources on this page. Thanks so much for watching. I'll chat with you soon. Bye for now.